What if I told you that there's a woman who cured herself of terminal cervical cancer using nothing but the power of her mind, and then went on to develop a 12-step system that has helped thousands of people heal from supposedly incurable diseases without any medical intervention? Louise Hay was given just a few months to live in 1977 when doctors discovered advanced cervical cancer that had already begun spreading through her body. Instead of accepting conventional treatment, Louise made a radical decision that shocked her doctors, her family, and everyone who knew her. She would heal herself using only mental and emotional techniques. 6 months later, Louise returned to her doctors completely cancer-free. The medical professionals who had treated her were baffled, calling it a spontaneous remission and insisting it was impossible to explain scientifically. But Louise knew exactly what had happened, and she began documenting the precise steps she had used to eliminate cancer from her body. Over the next 40 years, Louise refined these techniques into a 12-step system that addresses the root emotional and mental causes of physical disease. This system has been used successfully by people suffering from cancer, diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune disorders, chronic pain, and conditions that medical science considers incurable. Today, you're going to discover Louise Hay's complete 12-step healing protocol, understand the scientific principles behind why it works, and learn how to apply each step to create miraculous healing in your own life or the lives of people you care about. The diagnosis that changed everything. On a cold February morning in 1977, Louise Hay sat in a sterile doctor's office in New York City, listening to words that would have terrified most people. "Mrs. Hay, you have cervical cancer, and it's quite advanced. We need to begin aggressive treatment immediately, or you have perhaps 3 to 6 months to live." Louise was 50 years old, had been working as a metaphysical teacher and counselor, and had spent years studying the connection between thoughts and physical reality. Yet hearing her own death sentence was still a profound shock that forced her to confront everything she believed about healing and the power of consciousness. The doctor continued explaining the treatment protocol: immediate surgery to remove the cancerous tissue, followed by radiation therapy and possibly chemotherapy. The prognosis was uncertain even with treatment, and the side effects would be severe and permanent. But as Louise sat in that office, something extraordinary happened. Instead of falling into despair or immediately accepting the medical protocol, she began to see her cancer as a message, a physical manifestation of unhealed emotional wounds that had been festering in her consciousness for decades. Louise had endured a traumatic childhood filled with physical and sexual abuse, followed by years of unhealthy relationships and deep-seated patterns of self-hatred and guilt. She realized that her cancer wasn't a random biological malfunction. It was her body's way of expressing the toxic emotions she had carried for most of her life. In that moment, Louise made a decision that would change not only her life, but the lives of millions of people around the world. She told her doctor that she wanted to postpone conventional treatment and try healing herself through mental and emotional methods first. Her doctor was horrified. He explained that delaying treatment would almost certainly result in death, that what she was suggesting was not only medically unsound but essentially suicidal. Louise listened respectfully but remained firm in her decision. Louise had 6 months to prove that the mind could heal what medicine considered incurable. She moved to California, began working with a nutritionist to cleanse her body, and most importantly, embarked on the most intensive psychological and spiritual healing journey of her life. Louise understood that to heal her body, she first had to heal the emotional wounds that had created the conditions for cancer to develop. She began what she called forgiveness work, a systematic process of releasing every resentment, grudge, and traumatic memory she had carried since childhood. She also began developing what would become her famous affirmations, specific statements designed to reprogram her subconscious mind with beliefs that supported health rather than disease. But Louise's approach went far beyond simple positive thinking. The first 4 steps: decoding disease. During her intensive healing period, Louise discovered that every physical condition has a specific emotional and mental cause. She began documenting these connections, creating what would later become her comprehensive guide to the psychological roots of illness. Step 1. Identify the mental pattern. Louise realized that her cervical cancer was directly related to deep-seated feelings of sexual shame and guilt stemming from childhood abuse. She discovered that the cervix represents a woman's relationship with her feminine power and sexuality, and her cancer was a physical manifestation of decades of self-punishment and shame. This first step requires brutal honesty about the emotional patterns that may have contributed to your condition. Louise taught that diseases don't appear randomly. They develop when specific negative emotions are held in the body for extended periods, eventually creating physical dysfunction. For example, Louise found that respiratory problems often relate to fear of taking in life fully, digestive issues connect to difficulty processing life experiences, and heart problems frequently stem from lack of joy and emotional hardening. Each organ system corresponds to specific emotional themes. Step 2. Accept complete responsibility. This was perhaps the most challenging step for Louise, and remains difficult for most people. Accepting responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself or feeling guilty about your illness. Instead, it means acknowledging that your consciousness has participated in creating your current condition and therefore has the power to change it. Louise had to accept that her years of self-hatred, guilt, and unprocessed trauma had created the internal environment where cancer could develop. This wasn't about blame. It was about empowerment. If her consciousness had participated in creating the disease, her consciousness could also participate in healing it. This step requires releasing victim consciousness and embracing creator consciousness. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who has been attacked by illness, you begin to see yourself as someone who has the power to transform your health through conscious choice and action. Step 3. Forgiveness and release. Louise spent months engaged in intensive forgiveness work, addressing every person who had ever hurt her and every situation that had caused her pain. But the most important forgiveness was directed toward herself, releasing the guilt, shame, and self-hatred that had poisoned her system for decades. Louise developed specific techniques for forgiveness that went beyond intellectual understanding to create genuine emotional release. She would visualize the people who had hurt her, express her feelings fully, including anger and pain, and then consciously choose to release the emotional charge around those experiences. The key insight Louise discovered was that forgiveness isn't about condoning harmful behavior or pretending that hurtful events didn't happen. Forgiveness is about releasing the emotional toxicity that continues to poison your system long after the original events have ended. Step 4. Create new health beliefs. After identifying the mental patterns behind her cancer and releasing the emotional toxicity through forgiveness, Louise began the process of installing new beliefs that supported perfect health rather than disease. Louise developed specific affirmations for her condition. I lovingly forgive and release all of the past. I choose to fill my world with joy. I love and approve of myself. But she didn't just repeat these words mechanically. She worked to genuinely feel the emotions behind them and integrate them into her cellular consciousness. This step involves more than changing your thoughts. It requires rewiring your entire emotional and energetic relationship with your body. Louise taught that every cell in your body is listening to your thoughts and responding to your beliefs about health and healing. Steps 5 through 8. Cellular reprogramming. As Louise continued her healing journey, she developed increasingly sophisticated techniques for communicating directly with her body at the cellular level. These 4 steps represent some of her most advanced and controversial healing methods. Step 5. Direct cellular communication. Louise discovered that she could literally speak to her cancer cells and reprogram them through conscious dialogue. This wasn't metaphorical. She would enter meditative states and have actual conversations with the diseased tissue in her body. During these sessions, Louise would first acknowledge the cancer cells with compassion, understanding that they had developed as a response to the emotional toxicity she had carried. She would thank them for trying to protect her by manifesting her emotional pain in a form that demanded attention. Then she would give her cells new instructions. You are healthy, normal cells. You are dividing properly and creating perfect tissue. You are part of a healthy, vibrant body that functions in perfect harmony. Louise would repeat these instructions while visualizing the cancer cells transforming into healthy tissue. This technique is based on the scientific understanding that every cell in your body contains consciousness and responds to mental direction. Louise proved that conscious communication with diseased tissue could literally reprogram cellular function and structure. Step 6. Energetic visualization, healing. Louise developed specific visualization techniques designed to direct healing energy precisely to diseased areas of her body. These weren't general positive visualizations. They were detailed, scientifically informed mental processes that worked with the body's natural healing mechanisms. For her cervical cancer, Louise would visualize brilliant white light entering her body and specifically targeting the cancerous cells. She would see this light dissolving the cancer while simultaneously regenerating healthy tissue. The visualizations were so detailed that she could see individual cells transforming and healthy blood flow being restored. Louise spent hours daily in these healing visualizations, understanding that the images she created in her mind were actually directing energy and information to her cellular systems. She combined these visualizations with deep emotional work, ensuring that the mental images were supported by genuine feelings of love, gratitude, and healing. Step 7. Affirmation integration. While Louise is famous for her affirmations, most people don't understand the sophisticated way she actually used them during her healing process. This wasn't about mechanically repeating positive statements. It was about integrating new programming into her subconscious mind through repetition combined with intense emotion. Louise would repeat her healing affirmations in specific states of consciousness, during meditation, just before sleep, and immediately upon waking when the subconscious mind is most receptive to new programming. She would speak the affirmations with complete conviction, as if they were already true rather than something she hoped would become true. More importantly, Louise would feel the emotions associated with perfect health while speaking her affirmations. She would generate feelings of gratitude, joy, and vitality, literally programming her nervous system to expect health rather than disease. Step 8. Energy field restructuring. Louise understood that physical healing required more than just working with thoughts and emotions. It required restructuring the energy field that surrounds and interpenetrates the physical body. She developed techniques for clearing energetic blockages and restoring natural energy flow throughout her system. This step involved working with what Louise called the energy body, the electromagnetic field that extends beyond the physical body and carries information about health or disease. Louise learned to sense areas where energy was blocked or stagnant and use specific techniques to restore natural flow. Louise would spend time daily sensing her energy field, identifying areas that felt heavy, dark, or restricted, and then using breathing techniques, movement, and conscious intention to clear these blockages. She understood that physical disease often begins as energetic dysfunction that eventually manifests in the physical body. What's remarkable about your journey with Louise's techniques so far? Have you ever experienced the connection between your emotions and your physical health? Let me know in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed, because the final 4 steps contain Louise's most powerful and advanced healing methods. Steps 9 through 12, manifesting perfect health. The final 4 steps of Louise Hay's system represent her most advanced and powerful healing techniques, methods that go beyond treating disease to actually manifesting optimal health and vitality at every level of being. Step 9. Gratitude amplification. Louise discovered that gratitude isn't just a nice emotional state. It's actually one of the most powerful healing forces available to human consciousness. But her approach to gratitude was far more sophisticated than simply feeling thankful for what you have. Louise developed what she called anticipatory gratitude, feeling genuine thankfulness for healing that hasn't yet manifested in physical form. Every day she would spend time feeling profound gratitude for her perfect health, even while cancer was still present in her body. This technique works because gratitude generates specific brainwave patterns and biochemical responses that support healing and regeneration. When you feel genuine gratitude, your body produces endorphins, reduces stress hormones, and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, all of which enhance the body's natural healing abilities. Louise would write gratitude lists specifically focused on her health. I am grateful for my strong, healthy cells. I am grateful for my body's infinite wisdom and healing capacity. I am grateful for the perfect circulation that nourishes every part of my being. She would read these lists while generating genuine feelings of appreciation. Step 10. Vibrational alignment. Louise understood that everything in the universe, including human bodies, operates at specific vibrational frequencies. Disease represents a distortion or lowering of the body's natural healthy frequency, while healing involves raising and realigning vibration with optimal health. Louise developed techniques for consciously raising her vibrational frequency through specific combinations of thought, emotion, and physical practices. She would spend time daily in meditation, focusing on feelings of love, joy, peace, and vitality, emotions that vibrate at frequencies associated with perfect health. She also understood that the environments, people, foods, and activities you choose either raise or lower your vibrational frequency. Louise made radical changes in her lifestyle, surrounding herself only with influences that supported the highest possible vibration in her consciousness and body. This step involves becoming exquisitely sensitive to how different influences affect your energy and making choices that consistently support the highest possible vibrational state. Louise taught that when you maintain high vibration consistently, disease cannot exist in your system. Step 11. Mind-body-spirit integration. Louise realized that lasting healing required integration at all levels of being: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Many healing approaches work with only one or two of these levels, which is why results are often temporary or incomplete. Louise developed daily practices that addressed every aspect of her being simultaneously. She combined mental techniques, affirmations and visualization, with emotional work, forgiveness and gratitude, physical practices, nutrition and exercise, and spiritual activities, meditation and prayer. The key insight was that the mind, body, and spirit are not separate systems. They're different aspects of one integrated whole. When you work with all levels simultaneously, healing happens faster and more completely than when you focus on just one area. Louise would begin each day with practices that aligned her thoughts with health, her emotions with joy, her body with vitality, and her spirit with peace. This comprehensive approach created internal harmony that naturally expelled disease and attracted perfect health. Step 12. Lifestyle embodiment. The final step involves completely embodying the consciousness of a perfectly healthy person rather than someone who is trying to heal from disease. This represents a fundamental identity shift that makes perfect health your natural state rather than something you're working to achieve. Louise learned to think, feel, speak, and act as someone who had never been sick and expected to remain healthy for the rest of her life. She eliminated all language and behavior patterns that reinforced illness consciousness and replaced them with patterns that expressed vibrant health. This step requires releasing the identity of being a sick person, or even a healing person, and fully embracing the identity of someone who is naturally, effortlessly healthy. Louise taught that your identity creates your reality, so changing your fundamental sense of who you are changes what becomes possible in your experience. Louise also developed maintenance practices designed to preserve perfect health permanently, rather than just overcome current illness. She understood that true healing involves not just eliminating disease, but creating such robust health that future illness becomes impossible. The documented miracles. 6 months after her cancer diagnosis, Louise Hay returned to her doctors for follow-up tests. The results shocked everyone involved. There was no trace of cancer anywhere in her body. The tumors had completely disappeared and all her tissue appeared normal and healthy. Her doctors insisted on running additional tests, convinced that there had been some mistake. When the results were confirmed, they declared it a spontaneous remission and said it was medically impossible to explain what had happened. But Louise knew exactly what had occurred. Her systematic application of the 12-step healing process had eliminated not just the physical cancer but the emotional and mental conditions that had created the cancer in the first place. What happened next was even more remarkable. Louise began sharing her healing system with other people facing supposedly incurable conditions, and the results were consistently extraordinary. Case Study 1. Robert's heart disease. Robert Martinez was a 58-year-old businessman who had suffered 2 major heart attacks and was told he needed immediate bypass surgery or he would likely die within months. Robert had heard about Louise's work and decided to try her 12-step system before submitting to surgery. Working through Louise's process, Robert discovered that his heart disease was directly related to years of suppressed anger and emotional hardening stemming from a bitter divorce and business betrayals. He spent 3 months intensively applying all 12 steps, focusing particularly on forgiveness work and releasing decades of accumulated resentment. When Robert returned for pre-surgical testing, his doctors were amazed to find that his arterial blockages had cleared significantly and his heart function had improved dramatically. The surgery was canceled, and Robert has remained heart healthy for over 15 years while continuing to practice Louise's maintenance techniques. Case Study 2. Maria's autoimmune recovery. Maria Santos had suffered from severe rheumatoid arthritis for 12 years, with inflammation so severe that she could barely walk and was dependent on high doses of immunosuppressive drugs that were damaging her liver and kidneys. Using Louise's system, Maria identified that her arthritis was connected to deep feelings of criticism and judgment, both toward herself and others. She had grown up in a highly critical family environment and had internalized those patterns, creating constant internal inflammation that manifested physically as joint disease. Maria spent 8 months working through all 12 steps, with particular focus on self-love and releasing judgment patterns. As she progressed through the emotional healing work, her physical inflammation began decreasing. Within a year, Maria was completely off all medications and pain-free, with full mobility restored. Case Study 3. Jennifer's cancer healing. Perhaps the most dramatic case involved Jennifer Walsh, a 34-year-old mother diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer that had metastasized to her lymph nodes, liver, and bones. Her oncologist gave her less than 6 months to live even with aggressive treatment. Jennifer had young children and was desperate to find an alternative. She immersed herself completely in Louise's 12-step system, working with a practitioner trained in Louise's methods. Jennifer discovered that her cancer was related to deep patterns of people-pleasing and self-sacrifice that had left her feeling depleted and resentful. Through intensive application of all 12 steps over 9 months, Jennifer not only eliminated all traces of cancer from her body, but rebuilt her health to levels higher than she had experienced before her diagnosis. Her doctors called it impossible, but Jennifer understood exactly how the healing had occurred through conscious application of Louise's systematic approach. These cases represent just a few of the thousands of documented healings that have occurred through application of Louise Hay's 12-step system. What makes these results possible isn't magic or luck. It's the systematic addressing of disease at its root causes, rather than just treating symptoms. The complete integration. Louise Hay's 12-step healing system represents one of the most comprehensive approaches to mind-body healing ever developed. What makes it so effective is that it addresses disease at every level: mental, emotional, energetic, and physical, while also working with the spiritual dimensions of healing. The system is designed to be used as an integrated whole rather than picking and choosing individual steps. Each step builds upon the previous ones and supports the steps that follow, creating a comprehensive transformation that makes healing not just possible, but inevitable when applied with commitment and consistency. The scientific foundation. While Louise developed her system through intuitive understanding and personal experience, modern science has validated many of her insights about the mind-body connection. Research in psychoneuroimmunology has proven that thoughts and emotions directly affect immune function, hormone production, and cellular regeneration. Studies have shown that chronic negative emotions like resentment, fear, and guilt create inflammatory responses in the body that can lead to cancer, heart disease, autoimmune disorders, and other serious conditions. Conversely, positive emotions like love, gratitude, and joy produce biochemical changes that enhance healing and support optimal health. Louise's understanding that each organ system corresponds to specific emotional themes has also been supported by research showing that different types of stress and emotional patterns affect different body systems in predictable ways. The spiritual dimension. What sets Louise's system apart from purely psychological approaches is its integration of spiritual principles and practices. Louise understood that true healing involves alignment with what she called the intelligence of the universe, the creative force that naturally supports health, growth, and well-being. This spiritual dimension doesn't require specific religious beliefs, but it does require opening to the possibility that consciousness is more powerful than physical matter, and that healing can occur through alignment with natural healing forces that transcend ordinary medical understanding. Louise taught that when you align your consciousness with love, forgiveness, gratitude, and joy, the fundamental frequencies of universal intelligence, your body naturally returns to its optimal state of health and vitality. Practical application guidelines. For those interested in applying Louise's system, she emphasized several key principles. Commitment. The 12 steps require genuine commitment and consistency rather than casual experimentation. Healing happens through sustained application over time, not through occasional efforts. Professional support. While the system can be self-applied, Louise recommended working with qualified practitioners who understand the emotional and spiritual dimensions of healing, particularly when dealing with serious conditions. Medical integration. Louise never advised people to abandon medical treatment, but rather to use her system as a complement to conventional care, or in some cases, as an alternative when medical options have been exhausted. Personal responsibility. The system requires taking complete responsibility for your healing rather than depending on external authorities or treatments to fix you. Conclusion. Louise Hay's 12-step healing system represents a revolutionary understanding of the relationship between consciousness and physical health. Her personal healing from terminal cancer and the thousands of documented healings that have followed prove that the mind possesses extraordinary power to transform physical reality when properly directed. The 12 steps provide a systematic approach to addressing disease at its root causes rather than just managing symptoms. By working with the mental, emotional, energetic, and spiritual dimensions of illness, this system creates the possibility for healing that medical science considers impossible. Which of these 12 steps resonates most strongly with you? Have you experienced the connection between your emotional state and your physical health? Are there patterns of resentment, fear, or guilt in your life that might be affecting your well-being? I encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. This community is here to support your healing journey, and your insights might help others who are facing similar challenges. If this video has opened new possibilities for understanding health and healing, make sure to subscribe and activate notifications. We're continuing this series with more revolutionary discoveries from history's greatest healers and teachers. Next week, we're exploring 3 daily rituals of Esther Hicks that attract instant abundance. The specific practices that Esther uses to maintain her connection with the Abraham teachings and manifest extraordinary prosperity in every area of life. Remember, your body possesses infinite wisdom and healing capacity. Louise Hay proved that when you align your consciousness with love, forgiveness, and joy, miraculous healing becomes not just possible but natural. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week when we dive into the daily practices that have made Esther Hicks one of the most consistently abundant teachers in the world.